Moon Garden Media.
Welcome to the 330 To Go Sports Talk Show on Northeast Ohio's hottest and fastest growing news and entertainment media network.
Good morning, 330. How are we doing today? It is Tuesday the 16th. And if you are logging in right now, you are probably trying to figure out what it is I'm even wearing. It's Tuesday. Before we get into all that, let's make sure everybody knows to participate in the show. You need to go into the link description, okay? If you can click it. That'll take you over to the next prompt. Put your name in, come on stage. We're not going to show the camera. We're just going to talk to you. Also, you can copy and paste and then drop that into your browser, your Internet Explorer, whatever you use to search. Drop that in. That'll take you to the stage as well. Come on and we'll talk. So there's a lot to talk about. And first things first, this is, I know it's not quite a football referee, but it's the closest jersey I had. I want to honor the refs. So there's a lot to talk about with the refs. I think that if anybody was watching that game at 4:30 on Saturday, within the first 30 minutes, I think everybody was complaining about the guys who wear similar outfits. But before we get to all that, again, to participate in the link, go down, copy, paste, click on it, call in. We'll talk anything you want to talk about. It's your call. You want to talk sports related, call in. We had a gentleman, I believe, that was on talking about the bowling is going to be coming up here in like March, May. They're going to have something. And I was like, hey, comment on here. We'll talk about it. So let's get to some scores here real quick as well, guys. Let's check those out. So with the scores, we have ticking across right now in the NFL. Obviously, Browns take a little bit of a big L, 14-45. Texans roll on there. Chiefs pick up 26-7. Packers 48, the Cowboys 32, Rams 23, Lions 24. Bills last night with a big one, 31-17 over the Steelers. Eagles lose last night, 32-9. Rough go in the NFL last night. Rough go all around. Outside of that Lions-Rams game, everything was a complete blowout, in my opinion. It was not so much of a wild card, crazy weekend. It was more like, oh, this is going to get this out of control. And oh, well, at least there's a game later. That's how I felt like Saturday. I was like, we're losing. There's a good game Saturday night. That one, like it just was rough. But we'll get more into NFL here when we talk about that. As always, with the 330, we want to make sure that we are talking high school sports. So run across ticker down here. Here's a couple of scores. I checked my sheet. Hoover, 55 over Barberton, 47. McKinley beats up on East, 69-29. GlenOak, 66 over Copley, 60. It was a close game there. Dover, 51 over Cuyahoga Falls, 34. Perry down in Canton, 55 over Talmadge, 46. Mogadore, 71-51 over Rootstown. Green, I believe they had a game in between, but Green had a really, really good big game against Jackson. That whole Federal League, if you're really watching it, Green beat Jackson, Jackson beat McKinley, McKinley beat Green. It just shows you in high school sports, anybody, especially with basketball, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. So Rittman, back to the scores. Rittman 54-46 over Chippewa. Woodridge beats Field 56-42. For the girls, Garfield 36, Buckeye 30. Walsh Jesuit 43 over Whitmer with 40. Green 52-49 over Strongsville. Kent Roosevelt 48 over Field 46. Very close game as well for the Lady Rovers. Twinsburg 41, Cuyahoga Falls 34, Hudson 39 over Talmadge 33, and Louisville. There's those Louisville ladies, that whole program down there. I'd mentioned it before. They beat Perry 51-49. So a lot going on there with high school sports. We put out last week the RPIs. We talked about that. Those have already evolved, already changed. We had Louisville was like number 1 last week, and now they dropped down to like 7, 8. I think that that's almost like the NCAA. where people have all these rankings and stuff, and we hear that and we think that that's automatically what that team is. You don't know. We have no clue. I think as these kids evolve within their high school respective programs over the next few weeks, you're really going to see a big difference in what middle of February is a really good time, I've always thought, because they don't play till March when they travel down to Columbus to the shop. So right now, teams are just trying to figure out themselves, their identities. Some kids, there's freshmen that are playing up, and you'll start seeing that translate. Shout out to the kid down in North Canton. Hit a game winner against McKinley last week. It was in the corner. He had caught it on top of the elbow. I want to say there was like 2 seconds left on it. It was a nice little double clutch, and he throws it up over 4 extended McKinley defenders' arms, and the kid drains it. So a lot of exciting stuff going on with high school basketball as we continue to progress through the season, both for boys and the girls. NBA as well. We had the Cavs last night. They pick up a win against the Bulls. Checking the scores, I'm looking at the stats. Haven't completely, full disclosure, jumped into the NBA yet. I'll get there, but the NFL obviously holds, kind of the title till we get through the Super Bowl. But I'm looking at the box scores last night, and I see Mitchell has a nice night, 34 points on 36 minutes. And I'm looking at the Cavs, and I'm kind of like, do we really have a shot blocker? I always thought that Allen was more of a shot blocking kind of center, but I'm looking at his stats. He only had 1 last night. But when I get over to the Bulls, it blew my mind as I was prepping, talking to Moon Man. DeRozan had like 6 points in 38 minutes. I'm like, what happened to DeMar DeRozan? So I need to start paying attention a little bit more to the NBA. I think that'll come in time. But during that whole point with the NBA, I'm watching some of the other previews, and I see Mike Brown, and Mike Brown is complaining. He's the Sacramento Kings coach, and he's complaining about some calls and no calls. And I'm, laying there watching this on my, tablet, and I'm thinking to myself, man, the referees, like, it's not just like in high school, we give them a pass. I try to give them a pass because that's a person that's no different than you or I, that is just trying to be around a sport they enjoy. They're going there. They're under scrutiny. Us parents start screaming at them when calls don't go our way. And nobody's ever screamed and applauded a great call, right? Unless it's beneficial for you and your team. So I'm thinking about all that. And then I'm trying to get ready for the day. And I'm like, ooh, what outfit am I going to wear? Because, for some reason I'm materialistic that way. And I want to look nice for the few people that take the time to watch this. And my wife tells me, she's like, you should put on the referee. And I'm like, that's a great idea, because the referees have stunk in professional sports. Because I watched this Mike Brown, and if you go on, check it out. He's just complained about the call in the second quarter and then the no call like in the fourth quarter. So with that being said, we all know what happened with the Browns. Please, I cannot be the only one that was watching the beginning of that game and like we got no calls. And I get that everybody's immediate to jump on the fact of the referees are to blame. But really, in that game, in that first half, I felt that. Like if we would have lost that game by 10 points, a touchdown, something along that lines, I would have been like, man, those calls with the referees, that's what really put the game out of touch. And the Browns get, for lack of better term, screwed again, so everyone's, always so worked up about that. Thank goodness Joe Flacco decided to throw 2 interceptions, not completely. One of them wasn't completely his fault. I think he was trying to throw the ball away. Against Njoku, yes, I'll talk about that in a second. Katie Eastgate just made a great point saying that the pass interference on Njoku, that was atrocious. Flacco was trying to throw that ball away, though, and he threw it out there. If you kind of saw the replay, Cooper was going down, and Cooper, I think he thought he was obviously going to come back to where that was and break on the ball because he was under duress, but he threw it, and there's a Houston Texan defender just, like fair catching a punt, and he's gone. But on that play, the Browns' pursuit of trying to stop a pick six, there was like one person who literally was trying to stop that play, and it was Wyatt Teller. Teller is running down the side. If you saw Wyatt Teller, he like flipped over himself. When you have an offensive lineman trying to tackle a DB, it's not probably going to happen, one, because it's not a put down on the big guys, but they're just not quick as lateral quickness as a DB is. So it was the effort. He cared. He didn't want to give up on the play. So I commend that. But where's the rest of the play? I mean, just that whole breakdown of that whole play, it just seemed like at that point, everybody, even fans, players, was like, oh, it's over for sure now. And it was very deflating at that point because it was rough. But the calls, by what they're saying, does not change the fact that they were beaten by a better team. No, at the end of the day, yes, that statement is true. We can say that in hindsight. At the moment, when you're not with the pass interference on Njoku was horrible. The no call on Flacco was even worse. A defender put a shoulder into him. He was giving it up, spins around on top of him. We know what it was. It's playoff football. That defender is probably even there sitting there thinking, if I get a penalty, I get a penalty. Oh, well, if I take this guy out, I know that what they have sitting on the bench. And Driscoll wasn't even our backup. We had Walker there. Just to me, it was like, after it was over, I'm sitting back to myself thinking, if somebody would have told me in week 4, when we're getting ready to play Baltimore, and we all find out Deshaun Watson's not going to play, and we're going to go to Robinson, and everyone's like, oh, he had a great preseason, so we're going to tear it up. If I told you then we make the playoffs and we finish with the record that we did of 11-6, I don't think there's one fan out there that wouldn't have took that deal. How we would have got there, it was such a patch job the whole year. You can't really truly be mad. So when we lose and you kind of get that, feeling around town, I think everybody was just like, oh, we should have at least won this game. That game next week against Baltimore, I wanted that. That's who I wanted. Because if you want to be the best, you got to go through the best. And Baltimore has definitely shown this year they're the best team in the NFL. Don't try to rationalize losing. Sure, Joe. I'm not rationalize the. Okay. Sure, I am. It's not rational. You got beat. Plain and simple. We got beat. By the end of the game, all these things that you're thinking are thrown out the window when that game goes the way it does. It was absolutely rough to watch. I had some people over and we were watching the game, and I think somewhere in the third quarter, I was, after the second interception, might be in the beginning of the fourth, I was like, let's turn the music up and turn the game down and get the golf simulator out and start hitting golf balls, because it was so rough to watch because the magic was over and you knew it had ran out. And Joe Flacco purposely came to Cleveland just to make us believe and then break our hearts and be the true Baltimore Raven that he is. Not at all. That guy, to be 38 years old, amazing. The guy's a gunslinger. He created nothing but issues in my mind of the problems Cleveland's going to have in this offseason. You have to go to Deshaun. We know that. We're going to talk about this an awful lot over the next couple of weeks, because you always got to have talk some Browns as we talk the NFL. But it's going to be rough to be able to go into the season, because Deshaun truly needs, if he didn't sit back and watch how Joe Flacco handled that team and how Njoku looked like an all-pro, all-world beating tight end, and then I don't know what he was watching. You had a team that was band-aided together, and everyone's going to give Stefanski a ton of credit for that. And it is so, but a good point that was made is definitively, people like Andrew Berry and Stefanski have solidified themselves within the organization because of this season. Watson, that is not the case. That guy's got to come back out next year, and he's going to have to win a fan base over again because we're going to be screaming for Joe Flacco. And in all honesty, it's not Joe Flacco. It's that system quarterback of somebody who's able to sit in the pocket and be able to throw those intermediate routes. All right, we actually have a caller coming in here, or someone adding in. Hang on for 1 second as I get him prepped. Let me let him see. The 330 to go sports talk show.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, Matt. Hey, a long-time listener, first-time caller. How's it going?
Absolutely. We have you down as Taylor Swift's #1 fan.
Well, that's not true. Actually, I think my buddy's his #1 fan, or her #1 fan, but I'm a close second.
Close second? All right, we can change that. We can.
Hey,
what do you want to talk about?
So here's one thing I'll say. Like I got in the show a little late, so I don't know if you touched on it, but how do you think sitting everyone in Week 18 affected the Browns? The Houston Texans came in. They were playing for their playoff lives. They had a tough game. You know, they came in ready to go. The Browns were sitting at home. Do you think that had anything to do with the way they came out?
Well, wasn't there like 2 other teams, the exact same scenario happened to them? The Cowboys?
This year?
Well, the Cowboys play people in Week 18. For the Browns, 100%. But if you mean to tell me with all the injuries, it didn't make sense at the time?
I mean, I guess it's easy to go back and look at it and say, hey, that was a bad decision. But, I mean, even before when they're talking about doing it, I didn't think it was that great to sit everyone. I mean, at least playing for a little bit, get that rhythm, especially with Flacco. He's only played so many games. I mean,
I agree. I mean, in hindsight, when you look back at it, that's immediately what I think you go to. I think people were talking about the Packers had to play for something in Week 18. Look at how they rolled. Who else had to play for somebody the Week 18 as well? I'm losing my train of thought. The Chiefs.
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay did. Tampa Bay was another one. I know the NFL had talked about, the point being there was a few teams that had to play for something in Week 18, and they really, really took advantage of rolling the ball that got rolling in Week 18 into the playoffs. The Browns, it killed them. It absolutely killed them. There was no continuity. They looked like a team that was asleep from the beginning, that the defense was going to come in there and roll over on the Texans. And C.J. Stroud, what'd you think of him? I mean, I'm sure you're an Ohio State fan.
Dude, he looked good. I mean, that is crazy what he did this year. That nobody expected him to come in here and make the impact that he did. But, hey, I was watching something where they were comparing his numbers from the playoff game to his game against Georgia, which I guess Georgia, you know, they had a great defense. Yeah. And they were kind of like similar numbers. You know, the guy he puts up in big games, man, dude showed up.
Did he ever? You know, did you see who else showed up last night? The ex-Brown?
I'm actually rooting for the guy. I was always one of his fans.
You were a Baker fan?
I was, man. I just like the guy's attitude. I liked the way he came in, and he was himself, man. And I was actually watching an interview where he was told when he first came in the league to, like, knock that stuff off. You know, don't do that. Like, tone it down a little bit. He didn't say who, but sure, you know.
So rolling into next year, if you had to make your decision right now, and there is no salary cap, there's nothing, you can play like Madden video game and trade anybody for anybody, who would you take at quarterback as a free agent next year for Cleveland? Or would you just roll with Watson?
I've never been a Watson fan. That's a good question, though. I don't know who I would take. I would definitely look for a trade, though. Who would you take? If you had anybody.
If I had anybody? Oh, God.
Yeah, who could you pick?
Systematic, I would love Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
I think Trevor Lawrence, Joe Flacco showed everybody in Cleveland how the offense can be ran. I think Joe Flacco was a better fit for Stefanski's offense than Watson. When we had any type of play fakes for play action, You tell me anybody in their right mind that really thinks Joe Flacco is going to take off running with the ball. There's not a defense that's worried about that. And the running game, was it really that much better with Flacco or Watson?
I don't think it was good with Flacco.
It wasn't good with Flacco?
Was it?
No, I think it was a little bit less. So why would that play action work as much? I think it's because Joe Flacco knew how to move the pocket. If we noticed how many times he would roll out, the way that guy's eyes were downfield, he never looked to run. He would if he had to on a couple of those times that we saw in those few games. But for the most part, he would sit there and he'd work all the way to the sideline and wait for our receivers to, basically get in front of his face. And he knew how to throw the ball away. Watson, it seems like he's very quick to get right out of the pocket. It doesn't move it appropriately. He's either scrambling to take off running, and that's really it. I think Watson and everybody's excitement of seeing what he did in Houston when he had a Hopkins and there was another receiver out of Notre Dame. Who was that down there at the time?
Fuller.
Fuller, thank you. That both of those guys are stretch the field type at the time, stretch the type of field receivers. That's what Watson needs. Do we have one guy in Cleveland that can stretch the field?
Not really.
No, it's supposed to be Cedric Tillman. And that really hasn't been the case because he's a rookie and he's came in. Cooper hurt us on Saturday as well, but the guy's effort was he was a decoy. I think somebody had pointed out that I was watching it with and said he's not even running a route. He's just out there. And I think commend him for not wanting to lead the game and still being a part of the offensive scheme and the decoy. But, I mean, Cooper, do you bring him back?
I don't know, but I'm glad I don't have to answer those questions, I'm not going to have to make those decisions.
Yeah, right. See?
I think they have a lot of decisions to make, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But you said you would take Trevor Lawrence on.
If I had in the world of dreams, but
okay.
I think coming out of the free agency, who's coming out next year that you have Russell Wilson, people will talk about. Go get Baker back. Let's bring Baker back, right?
Oh, dude, they can never do that.
You're stuck with Watson. So, I mean, it's a hypothetical question. When I asked it, there was really nothing. I just wanted to throw some kind of randomness out there.
So say this. So say you have to keep Watson. Who do you go get as your number one?
I think that aren't they already? Isn't Hopkins already back in the conversation again?
Oh, really? Is he
at receiver? I think Cooper. I think people would like to bring him back because he had such a nice second half, but he has got a 3 in front of his age, and receivers. Look at Jarvis Landry. That was a point that somebody made. Jarvis Landry started off with the Saints last year, and by the end of the year, he wasn't playing for anybody. Father Time ticks in. Amari Cooper had struggled to stay on the field healthy. So that's why I would struggle to bring him back. So I'm not really quite sure what they're going to do. The Cleveland's got a lot of choices, a lot of options. And Barry is one of the best GMs, so I can really see him creatively taking advantage of it. That's really it. So, Joe, what area are you from?
I live in Manchester. So
you
shout
are
out to the Panthers. Woo!
Anything else you cared to discuss or wanted to break down further with me?
Are you trying to lead me into something? Am I supposed to be saying something that I'm not remembering?
No, I don't. You sound like a person I paid to call in because nobody will call.
No, you're fine. Hey, I was driving in the car. I'm like, I already listened to him. I love talking to him. So hey, let's get into it. What any sports coming up this week for you? Yeah, man, my boys, they both play basketball. So we got like basketball like every night. So we live in a gym and it's awesome, man. You probably know how that is.
Kind of. I'm the referee in the gym, apparently.
I was gonna ask about your shirt. Like what's up with the choice of attire today?
I just wanted to complain about the referees and
hey, I heard you complain about that Flacco hit, man. That's iffy.
You didn't think that was a late hit?
I mean, they could have called it, but I was okay with them not calling it. Like this guy I was watching the game with was losing his mind. Like this guy was like, "That's a flag." I'm like, "Come on, man, just settle down a little bit."
Well,
but I do get the point though. Did you watch last night's game on that Josh Allen touchdown run where he kind of like did that little hesitation? So they probably thought he was going to slide. and then
Yes.
he took off and scored. And then the next play, like he actually did kind of slide and they called it.
Yeah.
It's tough on the defense. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You know, like sometimes
Well, somebody like Josh Allen who takes off an awful lot is going to consistently probably get that call a lot more than somebody like Flacco. It just felt like at the time the cards were being stacked against the Browns, and it was driving me nuts.
I will say that the pass interference non-call on Njoku, that was huge.
It could have changed the complexion of the game at the time.
Yeah, I mean, now you're only losing by 21 or 24 instead of.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
it was a huge at the time. I think it was like we were like 3 points down.
Yeah,
a field goal down. It seemed relevant and important at the time, and that's what kind of freaked everybody out.
You don't know how the game's going to go if that, the call changes or they end up scoring on that.
We wanted the magic to continue.
That
was what was sad, is you kind of knew it was all coming to an end, and you could see the writing on the wall starting to occur. And by obviously the second interception, it was just rough, and it was sad. But then you're thinking, oh, we're the embarrassment of the NFL for the weekend, and that was not the case because there was a lot of games.
There was a lot of bad ones.